The print, 31st of March 2023, Bhutan is frantic to resolve its conflict with China. It will alter how India views its northern region. China has subjugated smaller neighbors like Nepal and now Bhutan as part of her all-out campaign against India. If India wants to address this issue, she should be proactive and post her forces in Bhutan and Nepal, which border China. Bhutan's Prime Minister Lotay Tshering recent interview with a Belgian newspaper, in which he accorded China equal weight with Delhi, Thimphu, and Beijing in resolving the Doklam border dispute, has raised serious concerns. Regarding the Doklam plateau, where there was a standoff between Chinese and Indian forces in 2017 that lasted more than 2 months before Beijing agreed to withdraw personnel from the face-to-face situation, Tshering told Libre, "It is not up to Bhutan alone to solve the problem. We are 3 in number. There are 3 equal countries, each accounting for 1/3, and there is no such thing as a vast or little country," Tshering continued. His words create the impression that Bhutan's capable monarch and government quickly realize they must settle their boundary issue with significant economic power as soon as possible. The problem is worsened because China asserted ownership of the Soktang Wildlife Sanctuary in eastern Bhutan in June 2020. China has purportedly developed several villages inside Bhutan. However, Tshering refuted this in the interview. The words by the Bhutanese Prime Minister came just before the 3rd anniversary of the standoff between China and India in eastern Lotay. Since the tragic episode in the Galwan Valley, which claimed the lives of both Indian and Chinese soldiers, there have been 17 rounds of negotiations to keep the region stable. Monitoring Chinese attacks against Bhutan closely. Tshering's comments are important for India. It will undoubtedly alter attitudes everywhere if Tshering suddenly asserts that China has an equal right in settlement of the Doklam dispute. Recall that Indian forces entered the Doklam Plateau in the summer of 2017 to block the Chinese from extending the road they were building into an adjacent hill feature known as the Champhari Ridge. If the Chinese had successfully constructed their route, they would have been close to Chicken's Neck, also known as the Siliguri Corridor, which links the northeast with the Indian mainland. The Bhutanese neighbors are undoubtedly keeping a careful eye on the situation in eastern Ladakh, which has deteriorated over the past 2 years. Even they would have understood that India finds it difficult to deal with China's growing influence and that Beijing is unwilling to give in to its intrusive neighbors, especially in light of Xi Jinping's recent consolidation as the supreme leader. China likely feels that now is the appropriate time to resolve its 2 outstanding border issues with Russia, since Russia is prepared to become an effective partner in the evolving geopolitical contest against the United States. The Ukraine war serves as the touchstone. China has 14 nations with which it shares borders. Bhutanese people undoubtedly reasoned that Thimphu had little chance if Delhi, a primary adversary of China, couldn't settle its conflict with Beijing. Are they bringing back the pact from 1992? Tshering also provided an intriguing time frame for concluding the conflict with Beijing in the interview with the Belgian daily. "We don't have any significant border issues with China, but some areas still need to be delineated." He remarked that we should be able to draw a line after 1 or 2 more meetings. According to credible sources, the Bhutanese government appears to be considering returning to the 1992 agreement with Beijing, when it pledged to settle the border disputes in the Doklam region in exchange for territory in the north. Additionally, it appears that the monarch of Bhutan owns some grazing areas in the northern lands. The Bhutanese king and his elected administration have successfully resisted a resolution for the last few decades, possibly due to their consideration of Delhi's delicate feelings. Delhi would have advised Thimphu to go slow with Beijing in the hopes that it could reach some face-saving agreement with China, as the India-China dispute has remained unresolved and grown more implacable, to the extent that the Chinese have attempted incursions, especially in eastern Ladakh. Tshering's interview, however, shows that the Chinese are growing impatient with Bhutan. We know that they are pushing for the 25th session of border negotiations with Thimphu. In January of this year, the Bhutanese and the Chinese met in the southern Chinese city of Kunming to discuss a three-step roadmap to resolve the border conflict. We also know that given their tight ties, Bhutan likely keeps Delhi well informed of the status of the negotiations between Beijing and Thimphu. The public comments made by Lotay Tshering have caused a rupture in the calm seas. They will undoubtedly affect how India views its northern neighbours and, perhaps, help to protect it from a poor country like China.